Alien Princess Dessert crying in shock I gone without permission. Asterisk Marcus Chen stood at the tall window of the Crystal Palace, looking out at the endless red desert of Zephyr Prime. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in colors that Earth had never seen. Purple clouds drifted across orange heavens, and the air shimmered with heat even as night approached. He had been on this alien world for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of talking, waiting, and getting nowhere. The peace talks between Earth and the Zephyrian Empire had stopped moving forward. Like a car stuck in sand. You look sad, Ambassador Chen, said a soft voice behind him. Marcus turned around. Princess Kelda stood in the doorway, her blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her silver hair flowed down to her shoulders like liquid metal. She wore simple white robes that moved like water when she walked. Not sad, Your Highness, Marcus said with a small smile. Just thinking. The princess stepped closer to the window. She was tall, even taller than Marcus, which was saying something. Most aliens they had met were smaller than humans, but the Zephyrians were different. Everything about them seemed designed for this harsh desert world. What do you think about? She asked. Her English was perfect, but she spoke each word carefully, like she was handling something fragile. Marcus gestured toward the desert. Home, my planet. Whether we will ever find peace between our peoples. Princess Kelda was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You are not like the other humans who came before you. How so? The others were always in a hurry. They wanted everything decided quickly. You take time to learn our ways. You ask questions about our culture. You even learned some of our language. It was true. Marcus had spent his first week on Zephyr Prime studying their customs and trying to speak their musical language. It was not easy. Zephyrian words sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. But he had learned enough to show respect. Understanding is the first step to peace, Marcus said. The princess nodded. My father says the same thing, but his advisors grow impatient. They think humans are too aggressive. Marcus understood. Earth had a reputation in this part of the galaxy. Humans were known for fighting wars, for taking risks, for pushing boundaries. Other species saw them as dangerous. Some saw them as useful. Few saw them as friends. What do you think? Marcus asked. Princess Kelda looked at him with her large, golden eyes. I think humans are misunderstood. You are not just aggressive. You are determined. When you want something, you find a way to get it. When you care about something, you protect it with everything you have. Before Marcus could respond, a young Zephyrian guard rushed into the room. He spoke quickly in their native language, his voice high with worry. Princess Kelda's face changed. The calm expression disappeared, replaced by fear. What is it? Marcus asked. News from our space monitoring station, she said, her voice tight. There's a problem. The princess led Marcus through the crystal corridors of the palace. Their footsteps echoed off the smooth walls. Other Zephyrians hurried past them, all moving with the same worried energy. They entered a large room filled with strange technology. Screens showed star charts and data streams. Zephyrian scientists worked at control panels that looked like musical instruments made of light. An older Zephyrian with dark blue skin approached them. He spoke rapidly to the princess in their language. Marcus caught a few words. Dangerous. Both worlds. Time. Ambassador Chen, Princess Kelda said, turning to him. This is Chief Scientist Velter. He has discovered something terrible. The scientist touched a control panel. The main screen showed an image of their local star. But something was wrong with it. Bright flares danced across its surface, growing larger and more violent. Solar flare, Marcus said, recognizing the pattern. A big one. Yes, Velter said in broken English. Very big. Coming this way. Will hit both planets. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Solar flares could destroy communication systems, power grids, even damage the atmosphere. On Earth, they had some protection. But out here, far from Earth's magnetic field, a large solar flare could be devastating. How long do we have? Marcus asked. Velter worked at his controls. Numbers appeared on the screen. 72 hours, he said. Maybe less. Princess Kelda sank into a chair. Our communications with the fleet will be lost. The peace talks will have to wait. Marcus finished. This changed everything. If both worlds were about to be hit by a massive solar storm, their political problems suddenly seemed very small. What protection do you have? Marcus asked. Some, Velter said. Emergency shelters. But not enough for everyone. In our technology, much will be damaged. Marcus thought about Earth. His home planet had better shielding. But they were not ready for something this big either. Millions of people could be hurt. And with communications down, there would be no way to coordinate rescue efforts between the planets. There must be something we can do, Marcus said. Princess Kellis looked at him with surprise. But you are here as our guest. This is not your problem. If Earth gets hit too, it becomes my problem, Marcus said. Besides, we are supposed to be working toward peace. Peace means helping each other. The princess smiled for the first time since hearing the news. You see, this is what I mean about humans. Others would think only about protecting themselves. Marcus walked over to the star charts. Tell me about your planet's defenses. Maybe there is something we have not thought of. For the next hour, Velter explained Zephyr Prime's emergency systems. They had underground shelters, backup power sources, and some magnetic field generators. But nothing strong enough to protect against a flare this size. What about the old ruins? Princess Kellis asked suddenly. The ones in the deep desert? Velter's expression darkened. Those are forbidden. We do not speak of them. But maybe, the princess began. No, Velter said firmly. The old ways are sealed for good reason. Too dangerous. Marcus looked between them. What old ways? Princess Kellis glanced at Velter, then back at Marcus. Ancient technology. From before our civilization learned caution. Our ancestors built great machines deep underground. But they caused terrible accidents. Now they are sealed away. What kind of machines? Marcus asked. Energy manipulators, she said quietly. They could control forces that we still do not understand. But the cost was too high. Velter finished. Many died learning that lesson. Marcus nodded. But his mind was already working. Ancient technology, energy manipulation, underground. Installations. It sounded like exactly the kind of thing that might help against a solar flare. As the Zephyrian scientists continued their calculations, Marcus stared at the star charts. 72 hours, 2 worlds, millions of lives. And somewhere in the forbidden zones of this desert planet, there might be answers. The question was, would anyone be brave enough to look for them? Outside, the twin suns finally set, and the desert began its nightly transformation in the darkness. Ancient ruins waited beneath the sand, holding secrets that could save 2 worlds or destroy them both. Marcus could not sleep. While Princess Kellis and her people rested during the coldest part of the night, he wandered the crystal halls of the palace. The twin moons of Zephyr Prime cast strange shadows through the transparent walls, making everything look like a dream. 58 hours until the solar flare hit. The number kept running through his mind. His feet carried him to the palace library without him really thinking about it. The doors opened silently as he approached. Inside, thousands of crystal tablets lined the walls, each one glowing softly with stored information. The Zephyrians kept their history in light itself. Marcus had visited the library several times during the peace talks. Princess Kellis had shown him sections about art, music, and poetry. But tonight, he was looking for something different. He found a terminal that could translate the ancient texts. His fingers moved across the light controls, searching for anything about energy, defense systems, or protection from solar storms. Most of the results were too technical for him to understand. But then he found something interesting. A section marked with warning symbols and access restrictions. Historical engineering projects, restricted access, authorization required. Marcus hesitated. As a diplomatic guest, he probably should not try to access restricted files. But 2 worlds were in danger. Sometimes rules had to bend. He used his diplomatic access codes. To his surprise, they worked. The files opened, revealing pages of technical drawings and historical records. The first document made him sit up straighter. It was titled The Deep Chamber Project, Final Report, Enclosure Order. Marcus read quickly, his excitement growing with each line. The ancient Zephyrians had built something incredible deep beneath their desert, a network of underground chambers that could generate massive energy fields. The text called them resonance chambers that could harmonize planetary magnetic fields. The drawing showed a complex system stretching across the entire planet. Tunnels connecting dozens of chambers, each one the size of a large building. Energy conduits running between them like the nervous system of some giant creature. According to the records, the system had been designed to protect Zephyr Prime from stellar radiation events. Exactly what they were facing now. Marcus scrolled through more files. The chambers had worked, protecting the planet from several solar storms, but then something had gone wrong. The final report spoke of catastrophic resonance feedback and unacceptable casualties. The last entry was a closure order, signed by the Emperor himself centuries ago. The deep chambers are to be sealed permanently. All access tunnels collapsed. All technical knowledge restricted. May our descendants forgive us for reaching too far. What are you doing? Marcus jumped. Princess Kelda stood in the library entrance, her white sleeping robes making her look like a ghost. In the moonlight, Your Highness, Marcus said. Standing quickly, I could not sleep. I was just. She saw the crystal screen with its restricted files. Her golden eyes went wide with shock and fear. You are reading the forbidden archives, she whispered. How did you? Why would you? The solar flare, Marcus said. I was looking for anything that might help. Princess Kaelis moved closer, her face pale. You cannot read these things. They are forbidden for good reason. But they describe technology that could save us, Marcus said. These resonance chambers, they were designed exactly for this kind of emergency. And they killed thousands of our people, the princess said, her voice sharp with old pain. My own ancestors died in those chambers, trying to make them work safely. She touched the screen, and Marcus saw her hands shaking. The energy required to operate the chambers is enormous. Someone has to control them from the inside, manually adjusting the resonance frequencies as conditions change. But the radiation levels. No living being can survive inside an active chamber. Marcus looked back at the technical drawings. What exactly happened to the operators? They burn from the inside out, Princess Kaelis said quietly. The energy that powers the chambers flows through everything, the walls, the air, the operators themselves. Our ancestors tried dozens of times to find a safe way to run the system. Every attempt ended the same way. She closed the files with a gesture. This is why the chambers were sealed. The cost of using them is always death. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, what if someone could survive the radiation? Impossible, the princess said. We tested every species on our world. Even our strongest animals died within minutes. The energy levels are simply too high for any biological system to handle. But Marcus was thinking about something else. During his military training on Earth, he had learned about human radiation resistance. Humans could survive radiation levels that would kill most other species quickly. It had something to do with their DNA repair systems and cellular adaptation. He had also read reports about human miners working in dangerous environments that other species could not tolerate, places with radiation, extreme temperatures, or toxic atmospheres. Humans always seemed to push the limits of what was possible. How long would someone need to survive inside the chambers? Marcus asked. Princess Kaelis looked at him suspiciously. Why do you ask? Just curious about the technical requirements. She was quiet for a moment, then said, according to the old records, perhaps 6 hours. Long enough to manually calibrate all the chambers across the planet and activate the full network. 6 hours. Marcus thought about the human endurance records he knew. Humans had survived much worse for much longer. And if the alternative was letting both worlds get destroyed by the solar flare? Your Highness, Marcus said carefully, what if I told you that humans might be different? That we might be able to survive conditions that would kill other species? I would tell you that many species thought they were special, she replied. The chambers killed them all the same. A soft chime sounded through the palace. Princess. Kaelis touched a communication device on her wrist. What is it? she asked in Zephyrian. The voice that answered sounded urgent. Marcus caught enough words to understand. The solar flare was moving faster than expected. Princess Kaeldis' face went pale. 36 hours, she said to Marcus. We have 36 hours, not 72. Marcus felt his heart racing. Half the time they had expected. This changed everything. Your people need to start evacuating to the emergency shelters, he said. We will, she replied. But Marcus, please promise me you will not think about the chambers anymore. Whatever ideas you are having, forget them. I cannot lose. We cannot lose our diplomatic guest to ancient foolishness. She was trying to sound formal, but Marcus heard the personal worry in her voice, somehow. Over the past 3 weeks, they had become friends, real friends. Despite being from different worlds, I promise I will be careful, Marcus said. Princess. Kaeldis studied his face in the moonlight. That is not the same as promising to forget the chambers. No, Marcus admitted. It is not, she sighed. You humans. Always looking for the impossible solution. As she turned to leave, Marcus called after her. Your Highness, the chamber entrances that were collapsed. How deep were they buried? She paused in the doorway. Marcus, just curious, the main entrance is in the glass canyon, 50 kilometers south of here, buried under perhaps 10 meters of rock and sand. She looked back at him with sad, knowing eyes. But even if someone could dig through all that, and even if they could survive the radiation long enough to reach the control center, they would still die. The chambers demand a life in exchange for their protection. She left Marcus alone in the library with the crystal tablets and their forbidden knowledge. 36 hours. Marcus looked out at the desert through the library windows. Somewhere out there, beneath the sand, lay technology that could save two worlds. Technology that demanded a price no one had been willing to pay. But humans, Marcus thought, had always been willing to pay prices that others would not. The question was, could he figure out how to reach the chambers before time ran out outside? The first hints of dawn began to touch the horizon. Soon, Princess Kaeldis would be busy with evacuation plans. Soon, everyone would be focused on preparing for the worst. Soon, Marcus would have to decide how far he was willing to go to save both their worlds. Marcus stood at his window, watching the sunrise paint the desert red and gold. 28 hours until the solar flare hit. Round the palace, Zephyrian workers were loading supplies onto transport vehicles. The evacuation had begun. He had made his decision during the long, sleepless night. Princess Kaeldis was busy coordinating the emergency response. Her people trusted her to keep them safe, and she was doing everything possible to save as many lives as she could. But Marcus knew that even with all their preparations, the solar flare would cause terrible damage to both worlds. The resonance chambers were their only real hope, and if someone had to die to make them work, Marcus had decided it should be him. He was a soldier before he became a diplomat. He had volunteered for dangerous missions before. The difference this time was that he was going without orders, without permission, and without telling anyone what he planned to do. Marcus opened his travel bag and pulled out items he had hoped never to use again. A military-grade survival kit, hidden in a secret pocket of his diplomatic luggage. Emergency rations, water purification tablets, a portable tool set, and a small but powerful explosive device for emergency situations. The palace security system was designed to keep him safe, not to keep him prisoner, but it still monitored his movements constantly. Every door he passed through, every room he entered, everything was recorded. Fortunately, Marcus had spent 20 years in Earth's military before becoming a diplomat. He knew how security systems worked, especially ones that relied on biological scanners and movement tracking. The first step was simple. During his morning exercise routine in the palace gym, Marcus damaged the bioscanner in his quarters by spilling water on it. To anyone watching, it would look like an accident. The scanner would need several hours to dry out and recalibrate. Next, he visited the palace communications center to send a routine report to Earth. While there, he quietly studied the building's security network. The Zephyrians used a central monitoring system that tracked all protected individuals. Basically, important guests and prisoners. Marcus smiled grimly. The system had one weakness that its designers probably never considered. It was built to track people who wanted to stay safe, not people who wanted to disappear. At midday, a massive sandstorm began building on the horizon. Perfect. Marcus returned to his quarters and activated his room's privacy shield, a feature meant to give diplomats confidential space for sensitive conversations. Then he used a trick he had learned in special operations training. He carefully placed his diplomatic identification badge, which contained his biosignature tracker, inside a small autonomous cleaning robot that serviced his room. The robot would continue moving around his quarters for hours, making the security system think he was still there. The hardest part was getting past the palace guards without being seen. But Marcus had noticed something during his weeks here. The Zephyrians were a trusting people. They posted guards to protect him from outside threats, not to watch his every move. During the shift change at 2 p.m., when the sandstorm was at its strongest, Marcus made his move. He wore his diplomatic robes over his survival gear and walked calmly through the palace corridors. Anyone who saw him would think he was going to another boring meeting or taking a walk. He smiled and nodded at the guards he passed, speaking a few words in Zephyrian about the weather. The palace had dozens of service exits used by staff and delivery crews. Marcus chose one near the vehicle depot, where the noise of evacuation preparations would cover any sounds he made. Outside, the sandstorm was fierce. The wind howled across the desert, and sand whipped through the air like tiny bullets. Perfect cover for someone who did not want to be followed. Marcus had memorized the route to Glass Canyon from studying the library's geographical records. 50 kilometers south, through some of the harshest terrain on Zephyr Prime. In good weather, it would be a difficult journey on foot. In a sandstorm, it was nearly impossible. Nearly impossible was exactly what humans specialized in. Marcus pulled on protective goggles and wrapped his face with cloth. Then he began walking into the storm, using a small compass to maintain his direction. Each step was a battle against the wind, but he kept moving forward. Behind him, the crystal palace grew smaller and smaller until the sandstorm swallowed it completely. Hours later, Princess Kaelis finished reviewing the evacuation plans with her advisors. Thousands of her people were safely in the underground shelters now. Soon, she would join them and wait for the solar flare to pass. But first, she wanted to check on Marcus. He had seemed troubled since their conversation in the library, and she was worried about him. She went to his quarters and pressed the door chime. No answer. Marcus, she called. Are you resting? Still no response. The princess used her security override to open the door. The room was empty. Palace security. She spoke into her communication device. Where is Ambassador Chen? In his quarters, Your Highness, came the reply. His biosignature has been stable there all afternoon. Princess Kaelis looked around the room more carefully. She found the cleaning robot with Marcus's identification badge stuck to its side. Her heart began to race. Check the actual visual monitors, she ordered. Several tense minutes passed. Then the security chief's voice came back, filled with alarm. Your Highness, Ambassador Chen has not been seen in his quarters for over 4 hours. We have been tracking his identification badge. Not him personally. Princess Kaelis felt the world spinning around her. Find him. Search the entire palace. Already doing that, Your Highness. 20 minutes later, the security chief reported back. No sign of him anywhere inside the palace. But we found evidence that he accessed the service exit near the vehicle depot during the shift change. Princess Kaelis ran to the palace's highest tower, where she could see across the desert. The sandstorm was still raging, but it was beginning to weaken. In the distance, she could see the dark line of Glass Canyon. No, she whispered. He would not. He could not. But she knew Marcus well enough by now to understand exactly what he was doing. The human had taken the forbidden knowledge from the library and gone to find the sealed chambers. He was going to try to activate the resonance network himself. Princess Kaelis collapsed to her knees on the crystal floor, tears streaming down her blue cheeks. She cried in shock and disbelief and terrible understanding. Marcus was going to sacrifice himself to save both their worlds. And by the time anyone could catch up to him, it would be too late to stop him. Alert all units. She managed to say through her tears, Ambassador Chen is missing in the desert, probably heading toward Glass Canyon. Mount a search and rescue. Operation immediately. Your Highness. The security chief's voice was hesitant. The sandstorm. Our vehicles cannot operate safely in these conditions. And Glass Canyon is in the forbidden zone. We are not authorized. I authorize it. Princess Keldas shouted. Find him before he reaches the old ruins. Find him. Before he does something that will get him killed. But even as she gave the orders, she knew it was hopeless. Marcus had hours of head start, and he had chosen his timing perfectly. The sandstorm would hide his tracks and prevent pursuit. The human had played his hand like a master strategist, and Princess Keldas could only watch helplessly as someone she had grown to care about walked towards certain death to save people he barely knew. Outside, the twin suns continued their journey across the sky, counting down the hours until the solar flare arrived, 24 hours remaining. Marcus stumbled through the entrance tunnel, his breathing heavy and his body aching from the long journey across the desert behind him. 20 meters of rock and sand had taken him 6 hours to dig through using the small explosive charges and portable tools from his survival kit. The tunnel walls around him glowed with a faint blue light that seemed to come from the rock itself. Ancient Zephyrian symbols covered every surface, and the air hummed with energy that made his skin tingle. 12 hours until the solar flare hit. According to the palace archives, he still had to reach the central control chamber, which was located at the heart of the underground complex. The tunnel stretched ahead of him, leading deeper into the planet's core. Marcus checked his equipment one more time. Water, emergency food, basic medical supplies, and a translation device he had borrowed from the palace library. Everything else would depend on his ability to understand and operate technology that was older than human civilization. He began walking deeper into the mountain. The tunnel was bigger than he had expected, wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above his head. Every few hundred meters, side passages branched off in different directions, leading to other parts of the complex. Marcus followed the main tunnel, guided by the symbols on the walls. He had studied enough Zephyrian writing to recognize directional markers and warning signs. Most of the warnings said things like authorized personnel only and extreme danger. Energy hazard. One sign, written in much older script, simply said, those who enter here do so for the sake of all life. May the desert remember their sacrifice. After 2 hours of walking, the tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. Marcus stopped and stared in amazement. The chamber was enormous, the size of a sports stadium, with a crystal ceiling that rose hundreds of meters above his head. But what took his breath away was the technology. Massive pillars of gleaming metal stretched from floor to ceiling, connected by networks of cables that pulsed with soft light. Control panels covered every surface, their displays showing incomprehensible data in flowing Zephyrian script, and at the center of it all, rising like a tree made of pure energy, was the main control matrix. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Marcus approached the central console carefully. The air around it shimmered with heat, and he could feel radiation washing over him in waves. His skin began to warm, and a metallic taste filled his mouth. This was where other species had died, trying to operate the resonance chambers. But Marcus was human, and humans, he reminded himself, were different. He placed his hands on the control interface. The moment his skin touched the alien metal, the world exploded into light and sensation. Suddenly, Marcus was not alone in the chamber. Ghostly figures of ancient Zephyrians stood around him, their faces filled with fear and determination. He was seeing visions of the past, watching the original operators as they tried desperately to make the system work. He saw them dying, one by one, as the energy levels overwhelmed their bodies. But he also saw something else, flashes of knowledge about how the system really worked. The resonance chambers were not just planetary defense systems. They were something much more complex, They were designed to connect multiple worlds, sharing energy and protection across vast distances. The ancient Zephyrians had been part of a galactic network of civilizations, all working together to protect each other from cosmic disasters. But the network had been broken long ago, when most of the partner worlds were destroyed or abandoned. Zephyr Prime's chambers had been operating alone, trying to do the work of an entire galactic system. That was why they had failed catastrophically. Marcus understood now. The chambers needed to be recalibrated not just for Zephyr Prime, but for Earth as well. The system was trying to protect both worlds, but it needed someone to teach it how. He began working with the controls, guided by the knowledge flowing through the ancient neural interface. His hands moved across panels that should have been impossible for a human to understand. But somehow the alien technology was translating itself for him. Meanwhile, back at the palace, Princess Kaelis stood in the communications center, arguing with her military commanders. "Your Highness," General Murdoch said firmly, "we cannot send troops into the Forbidden Zone, especially not during an emergency evacuation. Ambassador Chen is going to die down there," she replied. "We have to help him." "Perhaps it is better this way," the general said coldly. "If the human wishes to throw his life away on ancient nonsense, that is his choice. We should focus on saving our own people." Princess Kaelis was about to respond angrily when one of the technicians called out an alarm. "Your Highness, we are detecting massive energy readings from the Glass Canyon region." "What kind of energy readings?" she asked. The technician worked frantically at his controls. "It looks like, but that is impossible. The resonance chambers are activating." A hush fell over the room. Then everyone began talking at once. "How can that be? The chambers have been dead for centuries. The readings must be wrong." But Princess Kaelis felt her heart racing with a mixture of hope and terror. "He did it," she whispered. Marcus actually reached the control center. On the main screen, energy readings spiked higher and higher across the planet. Buried chambers that had been silent for hundreds of years were suddenly coming to life. Deep underground, Marcus struggled to stay conscious as waves of radiation washed through his body. His skin felt like it was on fire, and every breath was agony. But he kept working, manually adjusting the resonance frequencies as the system tried to synchronize with both Zephyr Prime and distant Earth. The alien technology was fighting him at every step. Designed for Zephyrian biology, not human. But Marcus had something the original operators had lacked: the human ability to adapt under extreme stress. His body was changing, moment by moment, learning to process the energy flowing through him instead of being destroyed by it. His cells were repairing themselves faster than the radiation could damage them, and his nervous system was forming new connections to interface directly with the alien controls. It hurt beyond description, but it was working. Round him, the chamber filled with blinding light as the planetary network came online. Energy surged through conduits that had been cold for centuries, reaching out to protective stations across the planet. But Marcus was not finished. The system was active, but it was not properly calibrated for the incoming solar flare. He had to fine-tune each chamber individually, adjusting their output to create a planet-wide protective field. Hours passed in a blur of pain and desperate concentration. Marcus lost track of time, lost track of everything except the flowing patterns of energy that he had to control and shape. Above ground, Princess Kaelis watched in amazement as the sky began to change. Streams of energy rose from points across the desert, creating a web of light that stretched from horizon to horizon. "The solar flare is beginning to impact our upper atmosphere," a technician reported, "but the energy is being deflected. The protective field is working." Princess Kaelis felt tears of relief streaming down her face. Marcus had done the impossible. He had activated technology that her people had given up as too dangerous, and he was using it to save both their worlds. But she knew the cost. Down in those chambers, the human who had become her friend was burning himself out to keep the system running. "How long can he maintain it?" she asked quietly. The technician checked his readings. "And known, Your Highness. But the solar flare will peak in 3 more hours. If he can hold on until then." Princess Kalis closed her eyes and prayed to the ancient spirits of the desert. She prayed for strength, for endurance, and for the impossible resilience that humans seemed to possess when everything else failed. Deep underground, Marcus felt the solar storm striking the planet's protective shield. The energy backlash nearly knocked him unconscious, but he held on, pouring everything he had into keeping the chamber stable. 2 worlds, billions of lives. He could do this. He had to do this, because that was what humans did. They found a way, no matter the cost. 3 days after the solar flare passed, Princess Kalis stood at the entrance to the ancient chamber complex. Surrounded by her best rescue teams, they had been digging for 2 days straight, trying to reach the control center deep underground. Your Highness, called Commander Velanus from inside the tunnel. We found him. Princess Kalis ran through the glowing passages, her heart pounding with fear and hope. What would they find? The human who had saved both their worlds? Or just another victim of the deadly chambers? She reached the main control room and stopped in amazement. Marcus sat cross-legged on the floor in front of the central console, his eyes closed and his hands still resting on the alien controls. Energy flowed around him in gentle streams of light, and his skin had a faint luminous quality that reminded her of her own people. But the most shocking change was his hair. It had turned completely silver, just like Princess Kalis' own hair. And when he opened his eyes, they contained flecks of the same golden light that marked all Zephyrians. Marcus, she whispered, afraid to believe he was really alive. He smiled weakly and tried to stand up. His legs shook, and Commander Velanus caught him before he could fall. Hello, Your Highness, Marcus said, his voice hoarse but steady. I hope the evacuation went well. Princess Kalis laughed and cried at the same time. You foolish, wonderful human. We thought you were dead. I thought I was dead too, for a while, Marcus admitted. But it seems humans are harder to kill than anyone expected. Over the next hour, as the rescue teams helped Marcus out of the underground complex, he explained what had happened during the 3 days of the solar storm. The resonance chambers had worked exactly as designed, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of just protecting Zephyr Prime, the energy field had reached across space to Earth, creating a protective bubble around both worlds. But that is impossible, Princess Kalis said as they walked through the tunnels. The chambers were never designed to work across such distances. That is what I thought too, Marcus replied, but the system showed me something through the neural interface. The chambers were not meant to work alone. They were part of a much larger network. He paused at one of the glowing wall panels and touched it gently. Information flowed across the crystal surface in response to his touch. The ancient Zephyrians were connected to dozens of other worlds, Marcus continued. When I activated the chambers, the system automatically tried to reestablish those connections. Most of the old network was gone, but Earth's magnetic field was similar enough that the chambers could link to it. Princess Kalis stared at the data flowing across the wall. You mean we accidentally created a connection between our worlds? Not accidentally, Marcus said. The system recognized Earth as a potential partner world. It was designed to include any planet capable of contributing to the network. They emerged from the tunnels into the bright desert sunlight above them. The sky was clear and beautiful, with no sign of the terrible solar storm that had threatened to destroy both worlds. But Princess Kalis could see something new in the sky, faint streams of energy that connected the horizon to distant stars. The chamber network was still active, still reaching out across space. Marcus, she said slowly, what exactly did you do down there? He looked up at the energy streams with wonder in his changed eyes. I think I accidentally started something much bigger than just saving our 2 worlds. Back at the palace, the full scope of what had happened became clear. The resonance chambers had not only protected Zephyr Prime and Earth from the solar flare, but they had sent activation signals to 12 other worlds scattered across the galaxy. Look at this, Chief Scientist Velter said, pointing to readings. On his instruments, we are receiving response signals from planets we never knew existed. The old network is rebuilding itself. Princess Kalis studied the data with amazement. How many worlds are connecting to the network? So far, 15. Vilter replied. But more join every day. It seems the ancient chamber technology was much more widespread than we ever realized. In the days that followed, delegations from several of the newly connected worlds began arriving at Zephyr Prime. They were species that had lost contact with each other centuries ago, when the original network failed. Now, thanks to Marcus's desperate action, they were reuniting. But the most important change was in the relationship between Earth and Zephyr Prime. The energy readings we detected show that Earth contributed significantly to the protective field. Princess Kaelis explained to the Zephyrian Council. The humans are not just our allies now. They are our partners in defending this entire region of space. The peace negotiations resumed. But they were completely different now. Instead of arguing about territory and trade rights, both sides were planning how to work together to protect their growing network of allied worlds. Marcus had recovered enough to participate in the talks, though he would never be quite the same. The alien energy had changed him permanently, creating a living bridge between human and Zephyrian biology. Why did you do it, Princess Kaelis asked him one evening as they stood on the palace balcony, watching the energy streams dance across the sky. Because someone had to, Marcus replied simply. And humans have never been very good at accepting impossible situations. But you could have died. You almost did die. Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, Your Highness, may I tell you something about humans? Of course. We have a saying on Earth. Sometimes the best way to follow the rules is to know when to break them. You told me the chambers were forbidden because they were too dangerous. But sometimes the most dangerous choice is also the only right choice. Princess Kaelis smiled. I am beginning to understand why humans have such a reputation in the galaxy. What kind of reputation? For doing impossible things, she said. For finding solutions where others see only problems. For taking risks that terrify everyone else. 3 months later, the Resonance Accord was signed by representatives from 18 different worlds. It established a new alliance dedicated to mutual protection and cooperation, with Earth and Zephyr Prime as the founding partners. Marcus was appointed as the first human Zephyrian liaison, a position created specifically for someone who had become something between both species. His job was to help other worlds understand what humans could contribute to the network. What exactly do humans bring to this alliance? Asked Ambassador Thorol from the crystal world of Zenth. Marcus thought for a moment, then answered, We bring the willingness to try solutions that everyone else considers too dangerous or impossible. Other species see a problem and think about how to avoid it safely. Humans see a problem and think about how to solve it, regardless of the risk. And this is good, Ambassador Thorol asked uncertainly. Princess Kaelis, now serving as the Zephyrian representative to the Accord, smiled. It is exactly what the galaxy needs. Someone has to be willing to go where others fear to tread. Someone has to be ready to sacrifice everything for the sake of everyone else. She looked at Marcus with affection and respect. Humans are impossible solution specialists. And after seeing what they can accomplish, I believe we are all safer with them as our partners. As the first meeting of the Resonance Accord concluded, Marcus stood once again at a window overlooking the desert. But now the view was different. Energy streams connected Zephyr Prime to distant stars, carrying messages and protection across the void. The desert that had once seemed empty was now part of a vast network of living worlds, all working together to face whatever challenges the universe might bring. And at the heart of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known. Sometimes, the only way forward is to take the path that everyone else says is impossible. The galaxy was learning that lesson now, one world at a time.